Welcome to iFinance Mortgage Studio. I am your host, Tiffany Phillips, and today I have an amazing guest, Saad Khan. How are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm doing so good. I'm just going to introduce Saad real quick. He is one of the owners.
Yep.
Of Fair Trade Real Estate. So they have been expanding. Even over the last 4 years, they now have one, basically started at one, right?
Mm-hmm.
One office and now at 11 branches. So absolutely incredible. We're going to dive into the wholesaling market and Saad's journey on how he built this amazing company and branches. So
yep.
Thank you so much for coming in. Literally amazing. Just everything that you have accomplished over these past 4 years, especially in such a tricky market. Mm-hmm. So I know I want to hear about it, my audience. Why don't you just kind of start by telling us how you got into this? How Fair Trade kind of started, and
I've been doing this exact thing for about 15 years now. I started out in the last downturn in 2008 and started wholesaling houses in 2009 in Dallas, and then I moved down to San Antonio and then moved out here to California. So I've literally been doing this exact thing for the last 15 years. Haven't really done any traditional real estate. I've, flipped houses and stuff. So taking care of the traditional side on that sense. But wholesaling real estate is pretty much my bread and butter. And that's what I've done for the last 15 years, like I said. But throughout those years, I've done sales, I've done acquisitions, I've led teams, small or big. And then finally in 2020 is when we started Fair Trade Real Estate, me and my partners. And it's been a great journey. It's really a lifelong learning lesson to me, because entrepreneurship and starting your own business is very difficult. It's tough, and you don't really know it until you actually do it yourself. So the last 4 years, obviously we started this in the middle of COVID, and that in of itself was really tough because everything was going virtual. You couldn't go see houses, so it was tough in the beginning, but slowly but surely we built a team. We got a lot of good people working with us. Absolutely love everybody that I work with. And we just slowly started doing transactions, building relationships, and one office turned into two offices turned into four, wow. four to six. Now we have 11 offices. A lot of them are in Southern California. We have about three actually now in Northern California. We have one out in Austin. So it's been really fun and exciting. It's been a lot of hard work. Not just on the partners side, but also on the team leads, on also the agents, and it's just been great throughout.
Wow. I mean, it's definitely incredible. I could just think of all of the last 4 years. There's definitely been so many fluctuations. Like, there's not 2020 was good, I think, on the 21 they were still going pretty quickly. Mm-hmm. A lot of inventory. But it's definitely been especially the last 2 years have been a little more struggle.
It's been
so definitely amazing that you guys were expanding so much.
For sure. 2020 was tough, but then it rebounded really quickly once things started opening up. 21 just blew up. I think across the board, I think interest rates were probably at the lowest. And properties were flying off the shelf. Not just the wholesale side, but also the retail side. 22, it started, kind of correcting itself. I think end of 2022. 23 was For most people, it was starting to become a struggle because
Yeah.
interest rates were rising. But even then, I think we pivoted. Even those 2 years, 22 and 23, we started off a little slow, but we pivoted.
That's so
We
amazing.
focused on sales, we focused on relationships, we focused on providing the best customer service that we can, even though that's
Yeah.
one of the hardest things. Um, and we tried hiring more people that were qualified and consistent with what we're trying to do, and overall, our team grew, our offices grew, and our revenue grew
So
overall. So
incredible. And can you share some key strategies that fueled your rapid growth?
um, personally, my main strategy is culture.
Okay.
If you want to build teams, you're going to have a good culture. Culture is what drives everything.
Yeah.
That's my personal philosophy. But we've done a lot of good things. We've empowered our team leads and our agents to collaboratively work together. That's done well. We've also kind of centralized a lot of the things that they don't want to do, like transaction management. Especially if you're double closing or wholesaling properties, you need to coordinate transactions very well because you're trying to please two sides in a short time frame. So a handful of those things we did really well, but primarily I think it's culture, it's team building, and building sizable teams. Like, not, you can have team leads and that can run a team of 30. It's not going to be
No.
efficient. It's not going to work well. Teams of 10 or less typically tend to work better. And then just empowering your leaders and encouraging them as they make more money to invest. Not saying go and spend all your money, but like invest
Yeah.
into the team, so into the people that they're working with. Take them out to dinner or whatever. And I've always done that, hanging out outside of the office a little more, whether it's dinners, or whatnot. So culture building, you don't have to do that, but like that does build culture. And then also
Important.
in office culture also, and that tends to keep your retention up. You tend to make money with your friends. You tend to have a big impact on just the office itself. So overall, you're going to retain people better, you're going to work with them better, you're going to have better communication, you're going to collaborate. You're
Yeah.
not going to do deals or get sideways about a deal or two over a few $1,000s because the person sitting next to you who you're sharing that deal with,
Yep.
you can make a lot of money with. So it's not
That's
a
so
short-sighted.
amazing. I love how you focus around the culture because ultimately, they're also doing a lot more studies now too. Like, it does make a huge difference on who's leading. Like, if they're leading with, kind of power, this angle, instead of somebody that leads with, like, how can we make this fun? How, like, we want you to love to come here. I'm going to give back to you. And it just makes people have that vibe.
Yeah.
Where they want to excel, not only for themselves, but for you, because
Yeah.
you're investing in them. You're putting time into them. You're building this for them. And ultimately, once everybody, like you said, it is a culture. So
Yeah, it's group
definitely.
accountability.
Yeah.
Like if you build a good culture, you also show the leaders that are also leading those teams that, like, hey, if you invest in these people, not just money,
Yeah.
time, energy, effort, it's gonna come back tenfolds down the road, because the more money they make, the more money you're
you
gonna
make.
make. And it really does work when the more money you can flow through people, at the end, you're gonna build a lot of value for yourself. So if I can show 10 people how to make money, whether it's wholesale real estate, whether it's selling mortgages, whether it's, even retail real estate, commercial, if I can show 10 people, train them, mentor them, coach them, and they're making money, obviously the system needs to be set
Yeah.
up that way that, you're also benefiting a little bit. In the long run, you're going to have good relationships, you're going to have good retention rate, and they're going to stick around, and you guys are going to make a lot more money in the long run.
Yep.
So
And what about, okay, so you guys are growing still. What about like hiring? Like, are you guys still taking people on?
Yep.
Like now, I know we haven't had that rate drop yet. We're hoping for it.
Yeah.
But even us, we're still hiring. I know some of the big lenders, they're still hiring. So what is that? What do you kind of look for? And it is like a culture thing, but do you kind of still look for, I'm sure you look for key aspects of somebody that's going to fit in that culture. So kind of tell us a little about that.
Yeah, it's recruiting and retention is one of the hardest things for any business owner. You know, and then also on our business, it's 100% commission. So recruiting and retaining people, especially in Southern California or California in general, it's very hard. But some of the key things that we look at, or at least I look at when I hire people, are you a good communicator? You know, do you put in high effort? You know, are you going to show up, right? I'm not saying show up physically, but like, are you going to show up? Like if there are meetings, are you going to show up and, you know, actually be present? So are you coachable? You know, like, can you take direction? Can you pivot? Can you correct things? Can you take criticism? So a lot of those things, you know, you kind of have to be that person or personality, or have gone through enough in your life to like, okay, you know, I need to be not as emotional. I need to be able to take that criticism because this person who's trying to teach me wants the best for me, right? So some of those qualities you can't really negotiate on, you know, especially communication and coachability, and effort. Everything else can be teachable, right? It can be taught. If you want to learn sales, you can be taught. If you want to get better at leadership, you can be taught. If you want to be good in acquisitions, if you want to be good on the phone, if you want to be, you know, if you want to do anything, those things can be taught. But there are certain things that you have to either be born with or work really hard at, especially if you lack in those. You know, if you're not a good communicator, okay, take some communication classes, you know, read up on how to communicate effectively. Read up on how to have a good phone call, how to conversate, how to pause, things like that. And then just, you know, being a team player. This is a team game. If you're gonna just be about me, it's only gonna get you so far. You know, you may make it into sales, you may make it into acquisitions. Obviously, your business is a little different. You may make a great LO, but you're never gonna get to that managerial level. You're never gonna get to the CEO level, because you're gonna have to be a good team player and also become a good leader to be able to lead a team. That's where you're gonna make real money, if you lead teams and build teams.
That is, I mean, those qualities, like you said, it has to be something within that person, like that self. So if they don't have that like current self, like if they don't know, do they, you know, like if you don't know the answer, do you skip the question or do you go find the answer, you know?
Yeah.
And it's like, how, like, that would be kind of tricky, like say on your first like interview, like how would one kind of, if you're just kind of interviewing them right off, like do you do a little research on them? Because those qualities are definitely, like I'm more of a self person, so I go within, but like I didn't start really doing that until my 30s.
That's a really good point you bring up, you know, and look at it this way. You have so much, you know, time that passes that you do different things in your life. Sometimes you don't learn some of those things until in your 30s. So imagine all the interviews that you've had over the years, over time, and they maybe said no. I mean, I got rejected, you know, from Bank of America as a teller, right? So like maybe I wasn't mature enough, maybe I wasn't self-aware enough, maybe I didn't answer the questions correctly. So like it's not something that you can't work on and like get better at, you know, like you may not be good at it at 12, but you may be excellent at it at 22 or 32. So it may not be the right time. And I've done so many interviews for sales position, acquisition position, and even for employees too. And you'll notice that it was like, it's kind of like, you know, it's kind of like relationships, like you'll meet the right person, but at the wrong time and you're not ready, and you'll meet the wrong person and at the right time, and then you try to make it work. It's kind of like that, right? So you want to be clear about what you want, right? And as an entrepreneur, as a person, whatever it may be, you need to be absolutely clear in the description of what you're looking for. Because as soon as you start, veering away from what you really want in a candidate, that's when you start making these decisions where, you hire somebody wrong, they don't show up, they're not a team player, they're almost like they're cancerous, and it's harder to get them out because it's affecting your whole team than it is to like do extra interviews. I mean, I don't know, do 5-6 interviews, do a ride along, get a second opinion. And that's everybody that struggles with. It's not just, I'm not saying that just from experience, but the mortgage industry, every single industry struggles with that.
Too.
And just getting better at the recruiting process. Like, do you have an actual process that you go through? Onboarding, making a good impression. So there are a lot of things. I mean, we can talk about this for like 2 hours, but overall, you want to make sure you know what you're looking for and they're the right fit. And you may not be the right fit for them. So
but I mean, if they could communicate that, then it helps. So I think and everyone's going to be at different stages, like you said. So but you are definitely hiring right now, so
I'm
that
always
is
hiring.
Amazing. I know, and in different areas too. Can they be remote?
You can, but it's really hard
because you want the culture.
Right? And remote for me comes to level of commitment. And that's one of the things in our recruiting thing, like, how committed are you, right? Do you have 2 other jobs and you're trying to do real estate full time as part-time, but like trying to do it full time? That's not going to work. And even in the mortgage industry, wholesaling, retail, like, people who have 1 foot in, 1 foot out tend to not make it, or at the very least tend to not make it at a high level. Like, you're never going to be a killer. You're never going to be able to do it at a high level or make a significant change in your life to be able to make that kind of money, right? You have to be committed. You have to have both feet in. You have to burn those boats. You have to do whatever it takes. And it may come with like suffering a little bit in the beginning, right? Like, you may only have your expenses paid for 6 months. Okay, cool. Stop going out for those 6 months. If real estate is the industry that you're choosing, whether it be wholesale, mortgage, whatever it is. And a lot of people don't have that level of commitment, and as a employer, as a recruiter, as somebody who's hiring, you want to make sure that you're checking that level of commitment. Like, is this person really ready for it, right? And if they have a lot of liabilities and obligations, and
it's just not going to happen,
and you have to have the side job to be able to pay for that, it may not be the right time. Save up some money. Get the timing right and then do it, so you're not stressed out over a lot of things. But if you're young and single and you have not a lot of things and you're staying at your parents', which quite frankly I've had a lot of younger guys and girls that we hire at 20, 21, still living at home, graduated college,
and they're just like cruising.
But that's the best time to take risk, right? Like, if you're gonna really bet on yourself and like, hey, I want to make it in.
Kind of what I did a little bit. Because 2020 happened and I had just passed, like, got my test and everything. And then I ended up going in that first like 6 months of building. I didn't have to worry about money or anything. I went I left where I was staying and I went and stayed over there for 6 months. And I was like, man, imagine trying to hold my studio and like be alone for like, it would have been really difficult. So that definitely made it easy where I could just chill.
Those things and those periods in your life really help you get that confidence. Because imagine like you moving out on your own and having a responsibility of a car payment, insurance payment, phone bill, and rent. Like 100% of the time, if you are a hard worker and you have high effort and you're coachable, you're gonna figure it out. And you also get that confidence, like, hey, I can do this, I can take care of this. And that's also gonna make you do better at work or any passion that you have or anything that you do, on your free time. So
that is, let's see, into wholesaling. So you're wholesaling Um, for those of us in our audience, um, if you can kind of break it down, like kind of go into what wholesaling kind of is, to start it out, and why it's a crucial part to, to real estate.
Yeah, so wholesaling is basically, buying a property or putting a property under contract and reselling that contract. That's the very basic
Okay.
meaning of wholesaling. There are different ways of wholesaling. That's probably the most common one, where contract the property with the seller, and then you assign that contract over to an investor or buyer. There's also double close or concurrent close, where you contract the property and then you actually close on it, with your own cash, and then you resell it to an investor.
Okay.
So two of the most common ways of wholesaling. Wholesaling provides quite a few benefits to the marketplace in general. One being inventory. You wholesalers in general, and a lot of smaller wholesalers that don't know what they're doing or just starting out, it sucks, they get a bad rep. But find somebody that can help you. Find a mentor. Find bigger companies that are doing it, that know what they're doing, so you save yourself from a lot of liability or a lawsuit or whatnot. But it's really needed because you're solving a problem. Not every deal can be sold on the MLS. Not every deal can be sold through an agent. Not every deal can be problem solved in those in those ways, in those traditional ways. So wholesaling really provides that solution to where, hey, there's a distressed seller, or there's a distressed property, or a distressed situation. It could be financial. It could be just a problematic property. Like it could have squatters in there, tenants in there that are not paying rent. It has mold. It's condemned. It's got a lot of city issues. All of those are some of the items, but then it can also be just an outdated property.
Yeah.
That has a lot of personal attachment, especially when like people pass away. If it's a trust property, and the person or people that have inherited it don't want to deal with any of it. They don't want to go through the stuff. They don't want to do anything. I mean, I literally just bought a property where it was a probate, and they didn't want to go through any of the things because it was just too hard for the family, and they lived in another state. So like, imagine if you're having to like clean it out and to list it.
Sell it to you, like you pick it up first.
Yeah, so we
you'll
bought
give them cash.
Yeah, we bought that property for cash basically. So there isn't any loans, appraisals, inspections, and then we resold it to an investor. Now, needless to say, everybody knows that it's at a discount because the house was filled with stuff, right? Just the trash out alone will take that, for that house specifically, was $5,000. So there are these things that need to be solved, right? And then it has to have enough spread for the investor to make money. So you're solving two problems, right? It's an old, dilapidated house, sometimes with a lot of junk in it, that you are cleaning up, reselling. Sometimes we don't clean it up. Sometimes the price reflects that. And you're reselling it to an investor, and the investor is going to make it nice and clean for a new family to come in. Inventory is low in the marketplace, right? So another property becoming available is better for everybody around.
Yeah.
The neighbors don't want that property vacant. The neighborhood is better because it gets renovated and a new family moves in. And overall, like, without the wholesaling piece, the investors would have to spend thousands and thousands of dollars in marketing to find that deal, right? So there is a really good spot for this industry, and it's getting even more and more popular now.
Yeah.
I think more and more people know what wholesaling is. And with that, regulation comes into play. So I'm hoping that there's going to be some sensible regulation coming into the marketplace to make sure that, buyers and sellers are on an even keel.
Yeah.
So on the retail side, I do want to say, as the commission is being compressed, and you'll see some of these laws being passed about, buyers agents not being needed, which I think is kind of ridiculous. Like, right?
They are needed.
It is gonna shift the buyer's agent role. It's going to shift business models. But there isn't a world where like they're not going to be needed at all, right?
Yeah.
They may condense. There may be more listing agents. There may be more agents doing wholesaling.
Yeah.
There may be, a mixture of both. There may be a new business model coming to fruition where they take care of everything for a very low fee, and then they employ buyer's agents as W-2 employees. Like, this is more opportunity. It's not like, oh, it's going to fundamentally just change the real estate game. And with technology, I think all of it can be done better, right? It's just going to shift some of those people. The best thing that it's going to do is cut out a lot of the part-timers that don't provide the best service to their clients, that are not there showing houses, that are posting a picture of a property from their cell phone, and it goes for listing agents too. So it's going to make the market a better place.
And I think too, in a sense, a lot say most isn't really going to change. It's just how it's listed. But ultimately too, now the buyer's agents are getting commitment up front, which before they really wouldn't. So, if you can, again, it's going to go back to what type of, salesman, and how it's going to take some getting used to, but it's really going to be how you pitch that service. But definitely I do follow, I cannot think of his name, but I follow somebody on Instagram, and he was talking about there was some things up in the air that they were going to do, like buyer's agent, like real estate agents hourly. And we're like, no,
there may be a model for that, right? Like if
hourly would
if an agent has obligations, kind of like what we're going, it may fit that personality, right? But for an agent who's
maybe like a W-2,
exactly, but for like a buyer's agent who's done it and who has that level of service or standard, they're gonna do exactly what you're saying. Like, if you want me to go waste my Saturday and Sunday, showing you houses, first of all, I'm gonna need a pre-qual letter to be able to even show you, to make sure that I'm not wasting my time. Second, if you want me to spend a week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks showing you houses, I need a commitment that, hey, if the price that the seller has it listed at doesn't reflect, my commission, it's gonna be added onto that, and that's gonna be a cost that buyer's gonna do. That's one thing, right? Another thing is the marketplace doesn't care. The market does not care about the buyer, the seller, the buyer's agent, the seller's agent. So when the market shifts, and it's not as easy to sell houses, what's going to happen? Sellers are automatically going to offer a buyer's agent commission. I have a property getting listed up in Lake Arrowhead right now that I'm flipping. It would be crazy for me to say no buyer's agent commission, right? And I'm speaking that from experience. Like, why would I list that property expecting some agent or a bunch of agents to go show that house and not get paid? From my perspective, right? Now, you could say, well, you don't have to include it in the price. But is that going to make my life easier or harder? Is that going to make their life easier or harder? Why wouldn't I offer 3% commission and just bake it into the price instead of playing these games, right? Sometimes it may make sense, sometimes it not, but overall, market's going to correct itself.
It's definitely added a step.
And
it just seemed now, basically, it adds the fluctuation of things, because before the sellers would put it all in there. But then it gave them that peace of mind that when they go shop for because they're selling their home to get a new one, right? So it really was that, like, kind of even, all right, perfect, I'll pay for it here, but I don't have to pay for it there. So it kind of, now it leaves it, it's going to leave
the devil's advocate argument would be, well, it'll help technology companies that control inventory. So like the Zillows, the Redfins,
I'm so a little
Compass,
confused on theirs. Like I said, I do kind of follow somebody that keeps me updated. It should be a pretty good source, but those they do keep talking about like the Zillow. I know that they just announced that they were doing something, but some states.
I think they switched their program from Zillow Premier Agent to Flex, which is more leads for agents.
Yeah.
But that would be a good counter argument to like what I'm saying is, hey, what about, these companies that can just, go direct to sellers and say, you can list it on our platform. We have so many buyers, and the buyers themselves can, get in contract directly, and Zillow or whoever that platform maybe can facilitate that thing, and then maybe they have a attorney on staff that does all the contracts and stuff. So I could see where
more
a service
like
a service could go there.
But what a buyer's agent does, that's all just like stepping.
Yeah,
that has nothing. Nobody off Zillow is going to go to that house, and no one's going to help you set up. If you're like a already experienced buyer, but if you're like a first time home buyer, never had a mortgage, like it's not just I know all the realtors that I speak to, like they're giving you all of your vendors or whoever you need to make that house yours. They tell you what to look out for, like that whole transition of becoming a homeowner.
Yeah.
So if you take that out, sure, AI, we have ChatGPT, like you can go on there and like, hey, what do I need to know? Like, I'm sure it will write you out a whole like step instruction, but it's still.
And typically these things happen, they don't happen overnight. They happen, like Zillow may come out, or some of these other platforms, or a new company may pop up, and they're providing the service, but they're providing the service only for the buyers, and they're the ones who facilitate everything, but they just do it way more efficiently. And all the things that you're talking about, right? Like all these resources, I mean, maybe they provide it, but their business model is different. They're hiring agents for that, back to that W-2 thing. They're hiring agents for W-2, and they have systems and processes and technology backing it to where that buyer's agent, well, they're not really even buyer's agent, they're just buyer's customer service personnel or representative, is going through hundreds of buyers. Kind of like your industry. Like an LO will do, a good LO will do what? When the refinance boom was happening, 100 loans.
I know.
Right? So
because if you worked for, where I started, I did work at a call center. Like a bigger company, like just straight connected to Google, like anybody can just go on there and like put in an application. So it definitely, I mean, you would spend 8 hours. Like I could spend a whole day on the phone. There was sometimes when I would take like 10 new leads. Those were the days when I'm like, okay, like I would call a manager.
To that
I
point,
get off.
I feel like the mortgage industry is a little more built out, a little more efficient in that regard.
Because but we're at the desk though.
I know, and
already.
That may change. That's what I'm saying. That may change for real estate agents, especially for buyer's agents, right? Where you're doing a lot more work in the office and you're going through 100 buyers, right? 100 transactions.
That would be.
It could be done. It could be done.
Gnarly.
And then, especially if the buyers are the ones that are finding the deals on your platform, right?
Oh, so it would be like your platform, but it would it still be like individual? Like if like Susie, if she was like, she with the brokerage, but like.
Yeah, I'm just saying there's a possibility, there's a world out there that may become a business model to where,
that would.
An agent.
It's almost like you get the app or something.
Exactly.
They have their own little platform.
Yep. And I think a couple of mortgage apps tried doing this recently. Better Mortgage is one, where it's a little too technology based. And I tried getting a mortgage to them, and it was not the best experience because it was very hard to get somebody on the phone.
Yes.
And
we used to actually we had. I'm not gonna lie. I'm not gonna use the places, but Better Mortgage. We used to actually have we'd have a full meeting, like it would all be on Zoom.
Yeah.
But like a full, what is that, like a floor meeting? That's like everybody that's like in there would jump in. And there were times when we would actually review, like the better quotes.
Yeah.
And like we would get strategies and like, look, you have got to go in because they're pumping them through in a sense, like we're live people.
Yeah.
And they didn't have, that's where we came in. And even though it would show that they would give like so many points or so many credits.
Yeah.
But they would be like, look, you are going to pitch this, and they would help us like get a strategy. Like I'm going to tell you right now, like go call that number. You're not going to hear from anyone. Even if you get connected, try to call them again tomorrow.
That's coming from personal experience because I was doing this through a mortgage application, and I ended up having to drop them, and I had to go with another lender. And that's a great example of like, hey, you've got a lot of technology, you've built a lot of systems, but that human factor is still needed to a certain extent. And that good mixture or hybrid of having the personnel with the right customer service level and then also utilizing technology. And when you mix the two, it can work beautifully. But like if you just rely on technology alone in a people-centric business, it's going to hurt you in the long run. And quite frankly, it did. I don't think they're doing as well as they were at one point.
I think even that year, I think they laid off a bunch.
Yeah.
But we would do that. And they were a big kind of like competitor.
Yeah, no, they were coming up pretty fast.
Well, they were just shooting out these like, they would always get their loan estimate. So we're like 5Gs.
Yeah.
Like, where are they coming up with this?
Yeah.
Like, and we would tell them like, look, I can't beat that, but I do, I get called all the time that they're not going to be able to, like, you're not actually, like, the loan officer is not, like, you have my cell phone. You have my cell phone. You can text me. I'm available. I was like, you're not going to get that service. So, and we had actually, like, weigh out the options for them. So, like, it's kind of when you're looking, like,
yeah, it's that whole
like
perspective of like value versus price, right? So like, you may get the cheapest deal, but again, like you were mentioning earlier, you may not get all the resources. You may also that process may be absolute a nightmare. You saved $2,000, but like buying a house in itself and going through a loan process is, especially if it's for the first time. Once you've done like 4 or 5, it doesn't matter anymore. You know what to expect. But like the first time or the second time, it's not fun if you don't have somebody, or the systems or technology helping you through, right?
Yeah.
That person-to-person relationship is absolutely needed.
I agree 100%. Been trying to get it out there. Definitely. I mean, it's a process, and a lot of people don't realize, because if you have a good team, like your loan officer and that's why I tell people, like your team, your loan officer and your realtor. Like if you think that your process was like just great, like first time home buyer, and it was just like a super smooth process, that's probably because those you had this team that we're communicating, and we're making sure like these contingency dates are met, and we're working together, and like, okay, it's already in, I got this, like boom, 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 and everything, I'm letting them know, I'm communicating like, hey, everything's cleared on this end, we can speed this up, let's get the appraisals in, I've already sent it. And we're doing so many things together that it's just like, oh, clear to close. And they're like, well, that was great.
Yeah. And a lot of agents and loan officers and people in this industry, they, when these things happen, they tend to get worried at times. And I was like, if you're focused on your business, if you're focused on providing the best value and service to your customer, you're never going to run out of business. If anything, these new technologies, these new changes that are coming out, they're going to help you, because they're also going to get rid of a lot of the noise out of the marketplace, a lot of the service that agents lack, providing. Even LOs, like you'll really quickly figure out if you got the right LO or the right agent or not, because if it's a good agent, it will like, hey, they're they're
Yeah.
slacking. If it's a good LO, it was like, hey, your agent's slacking. None of this stuff is,
Group
lined
text.
up. So it'll
I
happen.
keep every
Yeah.
group text. I'm like, look, I keep everybody connected.
Yeah.
But absolutely, I mean, things are going to change a little bit, but honestly, I don't really think much at all.
Yeah.
I think a little bit, but overall, they're looking at this next rate drop, maybe like September, which is going to be like summer.
Yeah.
And, it's going to be, it's going to be a time, and we've been fluctuating. So just educate yourself, find teams that are educated, and I feel like you can.
Yeah. And realistically, to me, interest rates don't dictate when you should buy.
Nope.
Right. And this is coming from my perspective because I wholesale a lot of houses. So
Yeah.
I am used to, me and my team, we're used to buying deals at a discount.
Yeah.
So you paying a higher interest rate, but you getting a great deal kind of offsets that in the long run. Right. So it really depends on if it's the right time for you to buy. If the right time is now, try to find a good deal, right?
Yeah.
Oh, how am I going to find a good deal? Well, look around, learn about the areas, right? So that interest rate thing, this discussion doesn't really apply.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, even if we'll wait till they drop.
Like, no.
Okay, that
if
doesn't.
you wait on the market, it's
Are you
never-
ready, right? Do you have
Yeah.
enough cash saved up for a down payment plus some? Do you really want to buy a house,
Yeah.
right? And
Now
what's
is
the
the time.
reasoning and the why behind buying a house? If you're buying a house because you're 32 and all of your friends have houses and just that's a
I
wrong
don't
reason,
even think-
right?
yeah.
That's a wrong reason for you
That
to go
is
into
not a live scenario right now.
So do it for yourself. Do it,
Yeah.
because you actually want the house. You want home ownership, and a lot of times it may make sense for you to rent and then wait
For a little
and
bit.
buy it.
Yeah. And when you're choosing, so when you're doing, you are in a couple of markets.
Mm-hmm.
So for the wholesaling, how do you choose kind of which markets to go in, and like what's that top criteria for you?
Primarily population.
Okay.
Number one factor.
That's just-
Any market. First of all, states wise, we're only in California and Texas.
Okay.
And that's for a very good reason because California is basically the largest state. It's larger than some countries out there. Population wise, it's basically a country on its own. Southern California has, a lot of people, in excess of 20 million. Northern California is probably around the same, including Central Valley and stuff. So population is the number one characteristic because if you don't have people, you're not going to have jobs. If you're not going to have jobs, you're not going to have income. If you don't have income, people are not going to buy houses. So all of it falls, within that category. Second is, what kind of housing stock does the place have? Like if it's a brand new, obviously suburbs have brand new houses, but like, does it have a good mixture of old and new, right? Mm-hmm. So Northern California, for example, has a lot of older homes. It also has, a lot of 50s, 60s, 70s houses, 80s, 90s houses. So you want to make sure there's a good housing stock of what you're buying and then the price point. If the price point's too high, like if the city that you're trying to wholesale in is average price is 2 or 3 million, which not a lot of cities do, but like it's going to be very hard for you to wholesale in those areas, right? Buyers are savvier, sellers are savvier. They're going to want a good deal, which is great, but at the end of the day, sellers are not going to want. Usually, if a seller owns a $3 million house, they're going to have some equity in it, but they're also going to have some resources. We've bought multiple houses that are $2-3 million. But getting a discount on that to where it makes sense to an investor is going to be a lot harder than a house that's 500, 600 that has a lot of buyers which are willing to pay up. And then you fix it or you add an ADU or you do some value add play and then it can be worth a lot more. Whereas the seller in that situation may or may not want to invest another 150 grand or 200 grand for an ADU to make the value jump 400 grand, right? So those are some of the characteristics. Obviously, jobs is one of those. Like if there aren't a lot of good jobs and there isn't a lot of activity, one of the good metrics is to see how many cash sales are happening. If you see that there are a lot of cash sales happening, then that's a good indicator that there's investment activity happening. So Northern California, Southern California, there's high appreciation. California in general, and then Texas is just one of those markets that's just
because we're all moving there.
Yeah, a lot of people are moving there. A lot of jobs are there. There's no state income tax. Price point of the properties is much lower. Average price,
and they're massive.
Yeah, you can get a lot of house.
I'm licensed in Texas.
Okay, cool.
And I do have some clients that would send me. I mean, they would send me these homes that are like 950,000. And they were like mansions,
massive,
like castles. I was like, oh my goodness. I sent them a screenshot once because like they sent me one, it was just under $1 million.
Yeah.
And I just so happened to do like, I don't know, I went to like an open house, but it was like a little over $1 million. It was like 1.1 and it was like a shoebox and like not remodeled since like the 80s. Or like just same, setup. So it was definitely, they were like, whoa.
Yeah, I mean, $1 million house in some parts of Southern California, you're not, I mean, there are a bunch of memes on that. You're not going to get much.
I see so many. Or like shopping.
It's just a little storage shed in the backyard, which realistically, I've seen $900,000 houses, 550 square feet.
I know.
And it's 900 grand. I was like, what?
But if you're like by the beach.
Understandable.
Like,
I don't have that shock anymore because I've been in California for 10 years now, more than 10 years. So, but when I first came out here, I was like, why is this house? If I just take this house and move it to Texas.
Are you by the beach?
No, I'm in Irvine.
Okay.
Yeah. So, even the houses in my neighborhood, I'm like, this is a cookie cutter track home. These are worth $2.5 million. Like, why?
Yeah,
I don't get it, right? But it's location, it's real estate, right? So
it is nice over here.
Yeah, it's not bad.
All right, and Saad, looking ahead, what are your plans for fair trade? And then if you can wrap up with some advice to our potential, buyers, sellers.
Yeah, we're looking forward to this year. This year is going to be, it's election year, so market is kind of, fluctuating.
We're waiting.
But, in any market, whether it's 21, 22, when it's shooting up, this is why I love this business, is we get to move with the market.
Yep.
Whether it's moving down, you move with the market down and you buy steeper, you buy better deals. If it's moving up, then you're resetting expectations. You can pay up a little more. Sellers tend to make more money in those markets, which is great. So it's just providing the best value, best customer service, which even every business struggles to do that. You're not going to make everybody happy. You're not going to make all your agents happy. No. You're not going to. There is a world where it can happen, and we're constantly trying to do that. But it's tough. Advice wise is just if you're going to get into real estate, just do commit. Yeah, you really have to. You have to burn the boats and actually commit, and it will work. Like, as long as you're working on your skills and learning things. Yeah, over time. It may take you 6 months. It may take you a year. Sometimes it may take you a month because things line up. But if you
but even if it's at a month, then you're that's only 1 month, and
then your expectations are set wrong. So you have another level of struggle coming your way.
Yeah.
It's true. I've had so many different sorts of people that come into this business, and we've had people that made a sale in their first 10 days.
Yeah.
And then you kind of get a false sense of accomplishment.
Oh,
and then you have to reset your expectations. So it was like, everything connected really well in the first 10 days. Yeah. That doesn't always happen. And then you go through a month or two, and then it was like, okay, this is more
and
like
then,
it.
Yeah.
And then you get the right expectations. And then some people, I was talking to one guy that we hired almost a year ago, and finally, after like 11 months, he started making sales. And I think his 14th month, he made like 5 or 6 sales, and I think he's about to make like $40,000, $50,000 in a month, which goes to show, like, if you work on something long enough, that $50,000 wasn't earned in 1 month. It was earned over a period of time, right? All the effort that you put in.
And that's where this year has been, I have a lot of people ask, like, you're in loans, in the past, like 2023, they're just looking at the media. But also it's like, I've been planting, the seeds, I've been filling the tool belt, and I feel, and I've definitely been around other business owners, entrepreneurs, lenders, even the broker here, very like family vibe. We do the culture vibe, all of that. But definitely education and all these things. And, as long as but it is a skill and it's tough to weather. It's not weathering through the market. It is keeping your mind and being able to basically plant those seeds without seeing, like, you will not know. You have to believe that you planted in the right areas, and you don't know when, but eventually those
it just comes down to like long-term thinking, right? It can't, if you're short-sighted, or if you're only thinking in the short term, it's going to be very hard for you to have a sustainable business in any market, right? Whether it be loans, real estate, healthcare, or any realistically any market, right? Any business. But if you stick to something long enough, so like you're gonna have people saying, "Oh, are you in loans?" Just because the market shifted a little bit doesn't mean I'm gonna go change careers. But then, I still love it.
I created a platform around it.
Exactly. And if anything, that's gonna get you more business and give you more relationships.
Yes, it was slower on the loans aspect. So, of course, the phones aren't ringing off the hook for refinances when the rates are like, they're shooting them up like 7.3 to 8.1. Like, they're not. But I have still, made a ton of relationship with future clients. I've gone to a ton of events because I had the time open. And I'm like, I'm not going to be able to go to 3, maybe 4 events in a week, but there's 4 right here, and I might as well go. And eventually over time, you won't be as hands-on.
Well, that also helps you pivot your business. Like, okay, what can I be doing? What can I be learning? Who can I be networking with? What other things can I do? Can I create more content? And can I, do more purchases, not just refis, because I feel like a lot of LOs.
I'm dipping in like everything at this point. It's like even if people ask me, like, do you do that? Like, I'll be texting my broker while I'm telling them yes.
No, it's good.
Like, hey, do we? Yes.
Yeah. Do we do DSCRs? Yeah. We just started. Yeah.
I was like, I text him about anything, but I'm basically, at this point, I mean, purchase, refi, residential, commercial, whatever you need, we're gonna figure it out.
She's your girl.
Whatever's going on. Well, Saad, I just wanted to thank you again so much for joining me. Great conversation, and just honestly amazing work. Amazing job. I'm an entrepreneur too, so I'm like, the fact that growth and everything in such a tricky market, 2020, 2021, great, but also to be growing, after 22, 23. So definitely incredible. I will have all of Saad's information below. If you would like to reach out to him or anything wholesaling. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Like, share, subscribe. Thanks.
Thanks, Tiffany.